Now, as you notice, the girls were very happy with my outfit today. I have Mickey shorts and Mickey shirt. I could actually do a Mickey voice, too. Did you know that? You want to hear it? Melanie's like, please don't. Check this out. Look how good this is. Oh, boy, hot dog. I'll be here all week. That's right. Okay, well, I mentioned that the kids, they really were excited about my outfit today, but having kids is very interesting. Parents, you will know this. Kids are mini yous. So they will highlight all the things you don't like about you. And then, this is God's sense of humor, okay? Because, maybe you're like, why is my kid always talking back? And you're thinking, well, maybe I always talk back. Or why is my kid question everything? Maybe I question. They're like little yous, and that's why they get on your nerves. So my girls, when we were having our grand opening, my girls were saying, you got to invite everybody. And I did. I put out a social media post, and I made some phone calls, and I invited some people to church. And I called about 4 or 5 people. But my girls were inviting everybody. I mean, everybody they saw at school, everywhere, anywhere they were at. So a guy calls me up, and he's going through some stuff, and he goes, he was telling me some really, really rough stuff that he was going through. And Piper's like, Dad, don't forget to invite him to the grand opening. I'm like, oh, okay, hold on a second. Dad, don't forget to invite him to the grand opening. I'm like, I get you. I get it. And so I'm trying to talk to him. Finally, I hung up the phone, and she goes, Dad, you didn't invite him to the grand opening. And I go, honey, he was going through a lot of stuff. She goes, Dad, you have no idea what one invite can do. It's like, yeah, okay, sound familiar, right? Then she goes further, and she goes, Dad, your job is just to invite. Let God do the change. It's like, oh, I wonder where you got that. This is the same kid that doesn't use utensils while she's eating spaghetti. This is the same kid that forgets to tie her shoes, but no, she decides to listen to me and give me this stuff. Now, what she was saying was, and I agree with her, and I think pastors should know this, but I also think lay leaders or Christ followers should know this, is that we cannot solve everything. We can't. I get it. We can't do everything. We cannot do it all. But we do need to make the time to be available and to be open to help people. And that's really the biggest problem that we have is time. Now, we read about the Good Samaritan last week. And I'm just going to highlight 2 verses from that story. And I'm going to go, it's in Luke 10:31. It says this, and by coincidence, a priest was going down on that road. And when he saw me, he passed by on the other side. Likewise, a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side. Now, the guy is obviously beat up. He's left for dead. And the pastor or the priest walks around him. The other guy is kind of a church assistant, a lay leader, the Levite. He actually walks on the other side of the street. Now, there's a couple things you need to know about this passage. One, it means that God could care less about titles. Titles mean nothing to God. Okay? I don't care if you're a pastor or a priest or a pope or a bishop. He doesn't care. Because unless you're doing what he's asked you to do, it makes no difference to him. So these guys had titles, but they weren't doing what he asked them to do. And they actually go around. Now, again, it's not like these guys really didn't care. They just weren't really motivated. It's not like they were harsh. They just really weren't motivated. Motivating is very messy. Motivation is messy, and nobody does anything for a single reason or an isolated reason. So motivation can get a little bit messy, and we all need to be motivated. For example, guys, how about when you were courting your significant others? In the beginning, you opened the door for them. You would cut their meat for them. You would rub their feet for them, you know. Kim Wade still does all these things. He makes us all look bad, but anyways, you would do all these things, right? And then after a few years of marriage, you're just kind of like your wife's in the other room and you're like the remote is right outside of your reach. Honey, you know, can you get the remote for me? You're just getting a little bit lazy. Or how about the other way? Ladies, let me make something very clear. We know that when you hold in a sneeze, you're not really sneezing. Okay, so when you go, achoo, that's not a real sneeze. That's simply you holding it in. But some women try to make it seem like, oh, that's just how I sneeze. That's just, have you ever done that? Girls, I know you've done this. Achoo. Oh, excuse me, that's just how I, no, it's not. You're holding it in. Everybody could do that. And then after a couple of years of marriage, it's like, or all sorts of noises come out, right? So here's the deal. It goes back to your motivation. For these guys walking by the Samaritan, the biggest issue was time. I don't have the time. Now, I want to make something also very clear. At this time, in terms of if you were a very religious person, you followed not just the 10 commandments, but there was actually 613 commandments. So 613 laws for religious people. Very, very difficult to do. One of the laws that they had, and that's what they went by, but one of the laws they had was you cannot touch a dead body. If you touch a dead body, you're basically out of commission for up to 7 days. So you got to put yourself in these guys' shoes. If I go near this dead, I don't know if they're dead or not, but if they're not dead, or if they're dead and I touch them, now I've got to be out of commission, and then that's going to ruin all the people that I could potentially help later. Let me show you what I'm saying here. In the Old Testament, Numbers 19:11, it says this: "The one who touches the dead body of any person will also be unclean for 7 days. That one shall purify himself with water on the 3rd day and on the 7th day, and then he will be clean. But if he does not purify himself on the 3rd day and on the 7th day, he will not be clean. Anyone who touches a dead body, the body of a person who has died, and does not purify himself, defiles the tabernacle of the Lord, and that person shall be cut off from Israel. Since the water for impurity was not sprinkled on him, he will be unclean. His uncleanliness is still on him. This is the law when a person dies in a tent. Everyone who comes into the tent and everyone who is in the tent will be unclean for 7 days. And every open container which has no cover tied down on it will be unclean. Also, anyone who is in the open field touches one who has been killed with a sword, or one who has died naturally, or touches a human bone or a grave will be unclean for 7 days." So guys, basically, I don't have the time. If I touch this person, I can't help heal all the people or pray for all the people that I can do that. And it's inconvenient. So I can't. So who helps them? Samaritan. Samaritan goes up and he says, "Listen, I'm going to help you with whatever you need. Money, food, shelter, bandage your wounds, do all these different things. I'm going to do this." And so when Jesus asks, who do you think is doing it the right way? The guy did answer correctly. Later on in the passage, he says this, in the parable, he says in verse 36, "Which of the 3 do you think proved to be a good neighbor to the man who fell in the hands of robbers?" And he said, "The one who showed compassion." And Jesus said, "Then go and do the same." Knowing what it will take, you're going to have to take your time, you're going to have to take your money, you're going to have to take your resources, you're going to have to take your talents. Knowing what it will take, Jesus says, go do that. I don't care about your title. I don't care about all the other things you've got to do today. This is the most important thing I want you to focus on. That's what I want you to remember. Now, guys, it's going to be inconvenient, not only to you, but to everybody else. Remember this. The decision to help someone else doesn't just inconvenience you. It inconveniences everything and everyone you're connected to. Remember that. It's just a given. So if you go, "Well, I can't help because I don't want to inconvenience," it's going to inconvenience everybody. For example, when we were growing up, we had a really nice-sized home, and my parents were involved with the church, and whenever there would be like a visiting entertainer, singer, whatever, they would always stay at our house. And it wasn't always super convenient, okay? But we would always have like singers and all sorts of different people at our house. But one day, my parents decided to bring home a guy who they'd been working with at the church. He was a notorious gang member. He killed people. He was a drug addict. His name was Freddie Torres. And when my parents bring him home, they put him into Vic in my room. So we like camped out with the guy for the night, okay? Like a killer, okay? And so, not super convenient. Now, my parents were not irresponsible. They knew that God had already done something in his heart. But what was so cool was to watch the transformation. It was the first time anybody ever accepted this guy and loved on this guy. He became to be a very powerful evangelist. And in fact, I was actually his ring boy at his wedding eventually. Also, a little funny side note. It was just a little fun. And this is a true story. Vic will back me up on this. Freddie comes in one day. My dad just went to the grocery store. And I said, "Dad, did you get my Twinkies?" And he says, "Yeah." And so Freddie comes in, and he's got this big thing on his mouth. And he goes, "But we got to go, James. I already got I got your Twinkies, but we got to go. I got to take Freddie to the dentist." And I go, "What's wrong with you?" And so he's like, "He's just hurting." So I go, "Freddie, you want one of my Twinkies?" He goes, JP, my nickname was JP. JP, I'd love to. I can't even open my mouth. I go, oh, no kidding. I lay my hand on his face. I pray for him, and then I give him a Twinkie. He looks at my dad. He looks at me. He eats it. His toothache was gone. No lie. Vic, right? Happened. So if something's going on, I'll slap you on the forehead right now. You're all good. You're all good. I could do it. No. It does go to show, though, the faith of a child. I literally had no doubt that would happen. I had no doubt in my mind. It wasn't like, how do you feel now? I was like, I'm going to pray for you. You're going to get healed, and I'm going to watch the cartoons with you. He was like, what the heck? So this is the power of prayer, the power of faith, okay? But it's going to be interrupted. You're going to have to be okay with being interrupted. For Jesus, loving others wasn't something you did when it was convenient. It was something you prepared your soul for and scheduled to be inconvenienced by, okay? Now, again, I'm not suggesting to go find a gang member and invite him to your home tomorrow. That's not what I'm suggesting. But when the doors are opening, know that, okay, if God's going to be opening some doors and he's saying, this is what I want you to do, go through it. Go through it. Guys, I know that this church family is a very loving family. I know you're generous and you're loving. I know you very well, and I know that you believe what you mean, like you believe what you say, and you're the real deal. But if I were to ask you the biggest issue on why you're not doing more what God asks you to do, I think your answer would honestly be the same as the priest and the Levite. I just don't have the time. I would love to do all the things that God asks me to do. I would love that. I honestly just don't have the time. As soon as my schedule opens up, I'm in. There is a very interesting thing about later. It never happens. Later never arrives. So you're always going to have this thing, okay? There's so many New Year's resolutions out there. All of the New Year's resolutions have already been broken. Okay? Only 9% finish part of their New Year's resolution every year. That's like one of the things that they wanted to do. And only one, maybe only one on that list. So God is calling each of us, guys, to very big things. Whether you know it or not, God is calling you to something very, very big. If he wasn't, I promise you, if he wasn't, you would not be here. The only reason you woke up this morning is because God wanted you to wake up this morning. He is responsible for that, okay? And he's got a big thing, but here's the deal. So many of us tell ourselves 3 very potent lies on why we can't do what God's asked us to do. The first one is, it's just a busy season. It's just a busy season. I can't. As soon as this calms down, I'm going to get really serious about this, that, or the other, but it's just a busy season right now. You know, it was funny. The girls were doing homework the other day, and they go, Dad, I cannot wait until I'm older and I don't have homework, and then I can just have fun all day. So you got homework when you're a kid and through a student. Then you have work, and you have all those responsibilities, and kids and all those responsibilities. And then, one day I'll retire and be good. But then when you're retired, I know a lot of people that are retired that are more busy when they were working. There's always going to be a thing. Okay? Now, here's the truth. Life gets more complex over time, not less. Please remember that, guys. Number 2 is, I'm just going to be like this until I get this goal. I'm only going to ignore my family until I hit this goal, and then I'll be the family man everybody wants me to be. I'll only be a workaholic till I get this promotion, and then I'll be good. Guys, I want you to remember something. The reality of it is this. Behind every completed goal is another goal. So if you get on that hamster wheel, you're not going to get off until something happens to you, because you're just going to keep going and going and going. And number 3 is, everybody lives at this pace. I'm just doing everything like, this is what everybody does. I've got to keep up with the Joneses, especially in Southern Orange County. Here's the funny thing about keeping up with the Joneses. God never asked you to. That's you. That's on you. He never asked you to do that. He did ask you something else, but it wasn't that. So what am I supposed to do then, Pastor James? Control time? Yes. Tell my time where to go? Yes. It's exactly what you're supposed to do. Some people, I can't control time. Yeah, you can. You can control whatever time that God gives you. God had the same 24 hours that he gives us. So tell your time where to go. You can either design your schedule or be dominated, but both are a choice. Whether you design it or be dominated, you're choosing one or the other. Okay? And for some of us, we don't like to admit that we need help. Peter managed his time very, very well. And he says this, 1 Peter 2:12, keep your behavior excellent amongst the Gentiles, so that in the thing in which they slander you as evildoers, they may because of your good deeds. As they observe them, glorify God on the day of visitation. What he means by this is be a good neighbor and live by example. And don't say, well, I don't have the time to do it. Make time to do it. That's what he's asking. That's what he's saying right here. Guys, relationships are terribly inefficient. They are. They're messy and hard and inconvenient, but ironically, they're also the most worthwhile investment you're going to have. I don't care how much money you have. I don't care how much fame you have. I don't care if you have a perfect health and you're feeling great. If you have nobody to share with, it means nothing. It just doesn't mean anything. Relationships are the most important investment you're going to ever have. Guys, it's not just a good idea, it's what God tells us to do. In 1 John 3:17, it says, but whoever has worldly goods and sees his brother or sister in need and closes his heart against him, how does the love of God remain in him? You know, guys, I've heard people say, I would do anything for my friends. I would take a bullet for my friends. I would go jump in front of a moving vehicle for my friends. I would do anything for my friends. Really, yes. Would you get off work early? No. Would you postpone that meeting? I don't think I can. That'd be too hard. Guys, being a pastor, when you become, and I tell this to pastors who are starting out and planning churches or whatever, I always tell them the same thing. Plan on being incredibly inconvenienced. Just know that you're going to be totally inconvenienced. Just prepare for that. Because what a pastor does is not what I'm doing right now. Unfortunately, there are churches, and they could even be big churches, so they think since our church is so big, this is clearly all I'm supposed to do. But what I'm doing right now is only what a pastor should be doing on Sunday morning. But some pastors think, well, that's a speaker. But if you want to be a pastor, that's an everyday thing. That's being okay with being inconvenienced. That's okay with thinking your day is going to do this, and something happens, and then your day turns and does this. And you have to be okay with that. And if you're not called, I always tell them, don't do it. Serve, volunteer, but if you're not ready for that, just don't do it, because it's going to require that of you. I love what I do, and I love being able to be in your lives, and I love that you include me in your lives. And I feel like I'm honored by it. I'm not bothered by it. You see, guys, of all the things you have to do, nothing is more valuable than caring for those around you, especially if it's inconvenient for you. And again, that's not just maybe for pastors, but that could be for anybody. And you can think, okay, well, now what? Now what do I do? How do I be there for people? Do you just tell me to do it and good luck? And I'm going to give you 3 different ways you can do that. First is schedule the non-negotiables first. Schedule the non-negotiables first. I have heard so many Christians, and they really mean it too, God is the most important thing in my life. I just don't have time right now to go to church. I don't have time to get in the Word because life is so busy and things are so busy. But God's the most important thing in my life. No, he's not. Stop lying to yourself. It's not going to help you. Because at some point, guys, we're all accountable for what we know. I'm going to say that again. At some point, we are all accountable for what we know. God is going to ask you, what did you do with what I gave you? I hope you have an answer. You can't say I'm busy. It's not going to work. So when people say, well, God's the most important thing in my life, and da-da-da-da, and then I hear this a lot. So people, it's like the get out of jail free card. Well, what am I supposed to do? I got to have family time. Wrong again. You should be able to make both a priority. Because your family is your first priority. Your family is your first ministry. My first ministry is to Melanie, Piper, and Phoebe. That's my very first ministry. And we have movie nights every Friday and Saturday night, and nothing comes in the way of those movie nights. If something's going on, it's going to have to wait, because those movie nights that's time blocked off. Sunday morning, we always go to church. That's what we have. And you schedule it. It's so sad to see really, really people that are really trying, but when schedules gets piled up, church is the first thing to go. That needs to be scheduled in. That needs to be something that we take really seriously. Or not getting in the Word. I can't get in the Word right now. There's not a good Bible study. I've tried Bible studies. They don't work. Sit your butt down and start reading them. You don't need to have a Bible study. Just start reading. But get in the Word. Start talking. Schedule it. Second one is minimize time suckers. Social media, cable news, going online. Those are all time suckers, you guys. All of those things could be good things. They could be in moderation, in small moderation. But if you do it all the time, they're going to take time away, so you don't have time to go to church. You don't have time to talk to God. You don't have time to spend with your family because you're doing all these other things. And then the third one is be interruptible. I'm going to do a little thing here for you guys right now. I want everybody to close your eyes for a second, and I want you to picture somebody in your life that has had a major impact on your life. And the second and they could either be alive or they can be passed on. But the second you have that person in your mind, you could open your eyes. Okay. Now, I guarantee you, the one quality that all of those people had in your lives, they were willing to be interrupted by you. You didn't feel like you were a nag to them. The inverse is true. If you have a bad relationship with a parent or somebody in your life, it's because you always felt like you couldn't interrupt them. That they picked everything else but you. Maybe it's an ex-spouse or a parent or a coach or a teacher, and they never made time for me. They didn't care. Everything else was more important than me. But everybody that's made a huge impact on your life, they were willing to be interrupted by you. That's why they have such a big impact on your life. So if they could do that for you, why can't we do that for somebody else? Let me ask you this question as we get ready to close. When someone closes their eyes and asks the same question, will they ever see your face? And if not, why? Guys, there's enough time. Peter had 24 hours. Paul had 24 hours. John had 24 hours. Moses had 24 hours. Jesus gave himself 24 hours. There's enough time. Don't say it's not enough. The problem is we're choosing, when there's not enough time, we're choosing the wrong things. And I love that we have the online option. I love that option for us, for people that are ill and that cannot make it. Do not look at online as going to church. It's not. You're getting the message, but you're not a part of the community when you're not here physically. So you got to make sure you're making time and scheduling that. Now here's what you could start doing today. Intentionally inconvenience yourself at least once a day this week for someone you don't feel like serving. Anybody in your life like that? It's easy to serve your wife or your kids or your family members or your husband, but what about somebody that you work with or as a neighbor or somebody who doesn't vote like you or somebody who doesn't have your same faith or somebody who doesn't agree with the way you live? And what about just trying to inconvenience yourself watch what happens. Because guys, I'm going to give you the key. When I pray to God and I say, God, this is your ministry, this is your church, you're going to grow your church the way you grow the church. He is saying, I'm already there. Stop waiting for me to magically grow this church. It's your responsibility, James, to prepare these people so that they can go out and invite people, so that they can go out and serve people, so that they can go out and teach and tell people about what's going on here. I've already done my job, James. I'm waiting on you. You start to love on your neighbors and on your community. Watch what God does with that. You'd be shocked. Because that's why we are all here. Somebody cared enough about us to inconvenience themselves, to tell us about what they know, to remind us of our value. And that's what we need to be giving to somebody else, guys. If we sit back and wait for God to do these supernatural things, he's like, I'm already done my job. I'm preparing you. Now you go and do it. I will be with you. I will be with you. Go and do it. If time is a problem for you guys, we got to remember it. It's on us. Think about this for 1 second as we close. Your time is so valuable that both God and Satan want it. And it's going to be up to you to decide what you do with it. He's going to give you free choice. If you decide to trust him with it, watch what happens. You try to watch online once in a blue moon and you have no community to do this. And I'm committed to doing that as your pastor, and I need you to help me with it as well. But we could do that together. Let's pray. Father, I thank you so much, God, for your church. I thank you that we do have the time to be here, God. I thank you that we have a place to be. Well, so many. God, I thank you for the people in this church family who love you and love each other. Like me, they come here every week to hug each other, to see each other, to smile at each other, to remind each other how loved we are. God, thank you so much that you've given us that. Help us to now go and share that with everybody we know about you. It's about you. Father, I thank you for the generosity of this church, the fact that they tithe and they give to above and beyond, and they give you their money and their time and their resources. God, I know you're going to honor that. I know you're going to continue to honor that. And when this thing is all said and done, and we see you face to face, I know that this church is going to be able to look at you and you're going to say, well done. Well done. Now come and receive your inheritance. Father, until that day, help us to continue to follow you the best way that we can, to love you the best way that we can, and to continue to grow your ministry here at South Hill San Clemente. It's in your name. Amen.
South Hills Church, I just want to take a moment and say thank you for watching our service online. Whether you're watching it for the first time or you're watching it again because you enjoyed the service so much from the weekend, I'd like to take a moment and dive into our giving. Every week we give people the opportunity to give back and give to the local church so that God can continue to bless your lives and bless your finances. Here at South Hills, we believe that everything comes from God. We believe that He's the one that chose us and brought us into this world, gave us our gifts and talents and abilities. And I just want you to know that when we give, we are giving back what God has already given to us. If you've ever seen any of our envelopes at a South Hills campus, you'll see on there that it says, every week at South Hills, your generosity is giving people the opportunity to live a better story. And there's a scripture on there in Matthew chapter 6, verse 21 that says, where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. So I want to encourage you today to click down below and set up your giving, whether it's for the first time or whether you're doing reoccurring giving. We have 4 ways to give here at South Hills. 1, you can do it in person at any of our campuses through an envelope. Or 2, you can actually text any amount that you would like to 84321. And the 3rd way is to download our Church Center app. I encourage you to do this one because the Church Center app gives you opportunity to stay connected with our church and your campuses. It's a great tool and resource for you to know what's going on. And the 4th way to give is to give online. You can go to southhills.org/give and you can set up your giving there. Whether you're a guest of our church or whether you are a member of our church, or whether you simply just like to watch our services, I encourage you to trust God with your finances so that He can bless and anoint your finances, and you can be trusting God in this journey of living life to the fullest. I love you, and thank you for watching our online service today.